Well, big news for the AMD stock today, and that is a major acquisition that was just announced Wednesday, July 10th. So look, there's an identified gap at AMD, which is a shortage of individuals with AI experience and skills, things like that, which is something that Nvidia has had nearly a monopoly on. But still, AMD remains the second largest GPU provider behind Nvidia, but this acquisition today could move them from a lagging second to potentially a strong second or even higher. Silo AI is what was announced today, and this announcement has sent the stock price up on July 10th specifically. But there are some critical things that we need to unpack, and consider this my second update to my original AMD stock video from June 24th, because you asked for further updates, and I shall deliver. Here's what we need to unpack. First, the current price action on AMD. Second, what Silo AI really stands for to push AMD even higher. And third, my price prediction and expectations for AMD in the short term. So let's dive right in. So if we look here at the price alone from the last video on June 24th until today, that's already a growth of 14.8%. So with my average price of $159 per share, the closing price on July 10th at $183.96, well, that's looking very nice. And if you're an AMD holder, what's your average price per share? Comment below. None of this is financial advice, but I'd like to congratulate you if you bought in a little bit early, because today's price rise looking good. Because remember, even with this news, we could easily, and I mean easily, see a pullback in the near term. And this isn't about day trading right now. This is really about approaching AMD as an owner of the company. Because you're buying AMD, you're now an investor, which means you're now an owner. And as the owner, you need to have expectations that they're going to continue to perform on revenue, on profit, and growth expectations. So AMD is currently up 56% in the last year and has expectations of continued growth. If you look at the last year alone, AMD has seen some great growth with its MI300 family of AI accelerators ramping up to approximately $1 billion faster than any other product launch in the company's history. And that's important news to keep in mind. But as mentioned earlier, the bigger problem here is that AMD has really been constrained by AI skill set in the company, as most people kind of flock to Nvidia. Most of the workers go to Nvidia, which makes sense on the surface. But with Silo AI, this infuses engagement with AMD to gain a wealth of talent. It brings an additional 300 people, including 125 AI scientists, PhDs, which already have experience training LLMs on AMD platforms. These are people that know what they're doing. And that means we need to move on to the second point here, which is how does that acquisition of Silo AI actually help? So beyond what I already mentioned, onboarding Silo AI in this $665 million deal will help AMD move faster in this high revenue environment of AI. So just last year, remember, AMD announced the Instinct MI300 family of these AI accelerators, which increased its projections of $4 billion in revenue. And that's combined with Microsoft's recent announcement in May that the availability of AMD's MI300-based instances will be on its Azure cloud infrastructure. But that led to this growing concern that AMD doesn't actually have the capability to capitalize on this opportunity with the big dog Microsoft, right? So, and the issue here isn't really the hardware. It's not the chips of AMD, but it's really about the software and the ability to get customers integrated with AI solutions that can utilize those AMD chips in the right way. Well, no longer is that a problem, because that is where Silo AI comes to the rescue, especially when you look at their line of customers that now AMD has access to. And we're talking about big dogs like customers such as Rolls-Royce, Unilever, among many others, which gives them the ability to deliver these AI solutions across a wider range. This is big for us as investors. And this, my friend, is why we saw the uptick on the price on July 10th for AMD stock. AMD delivers on this incredible acquisition while continuing to grow its partnerships with things like Microsoft and Dell. This could line us up for an exciting year ahead. Now, remember my price prediction at the end of the last AMD update video? What I was talking about is $245 a share or potentially higher in the future. Drop your price prediction in the comments below. that leads us to understanding expectations. And that's the third point we need to talk about here, because there are a few things that we really need to pay attention to, especially considering this new acquisition. First is the continuing demand of artificial intelligence. Look, this isn't the point of Nvidia versus AMD. And really, rising tides could lift all boats in this particular case. But what we want to continue to see is AI demand, because that increase of demand will mean that AMD has the runway to step up their game in this revenue-rich environment. So a lot of people, especially in the comments down below, they tend to say AI is a fad. AI is not going to make it. Why are we talking about AI? But I want to point something out, that you might actually want to look back and realize that you sound like the people when they talked about this thing called the internet back in 1995. In fact, I'll include a video from the Today Show, of all places, back in 1995, when they were talking about this internet thing and their potentially bullish look on the future in some cases. But honestly, today, we can't live without the internet. So all those naysayers back then, they were kind of wrong. And I see AI as that next step. From your future car technology to the ease of making computers more intelligent to automating all kinds of cool things in your life. See, I really think this is the dawn of Internet 2.0. And as we grow, the brains behind that operation needs to grow as well. And that revenue is all shared. Those brains are the chips and AI solutions powered by things like AMD and Nvidia. So in the interim, we see earnings reports due for July 30th, 2024, which will report on the Q2 results. Now, this is a critical one. Although it might be weaker as they gear up with this new acquisition, because you got to remember that Silo AI, it won't be ready to show anything, of course, in those results in Q2. It's going to take some time. In fact, AMD announced this was a $65 million acquisition paid for all in cash. And that's absolutely amazing considering, of course, we don't want the companies to go into massive debt and take on more liabilities to fund this type of acquisition, because with the success that they could have, it could be able to pull operating profit much quicker without that debt overload. So the forecast right now for earnings per share in the second quarter is estimated at 67 cents. Now, typically, what we can expect is that if it hits that number, the stock's likely going to, bobble up and down. It'll look good. If it's above that, we likely could see a gain. However, there will be a lot of focus on what Lisa Su and the AMD says about forward-looking statements that could possibly influence growth or a pullback on AMD in the potential short term. So then what you need to see could potentially be AMD drop to, let's say, $160, $150, $140 a share. And let's just say it drops to $140 a share. If that happens, a smart investor is going to look at all the angles of the company that they own, in this case AMD, and are they feeling good about the future growth enough to either hold or buy the dip in the meantime. Do you like to buy the dip? Sometimes I do too, but if we look over here at the quarterly income statement, one of my 3 favorite quick metrics is operating income. Okay, let's start there, the operating income. Do you notice how throughout September of 2022 until July of 2023, AMD was reporting a negative operating income? Not good. And this is then turned around, of course, with some nice positive operating income, and then a bit of a lower one in Q1 of 2024. But that's critical to look at first because we want to see positive operating growth. But here in these quick hit 3, the second one is we need to look at their current assets, right? Look at their current assets versus their current liabilities. We need to remember that when we look at the balance sheet, the current assets and liabilities are those things that can be converted quickly into cash or used up within 1 year or within the business's operating cycle. So we want assets to always be higher than liabilities when we look on these reports. And in this case, AMD, they're looking strong. They're looking okay. That's great. So when we get to the report in Q2, especially in Q3, we want to ensure this $65 million cash deal does not end up eating a lot of their assets or cash balance. And that leads us to the third option, which is levered free cash flow on the income statement. And that is the amount of money that a company has left remaining after they pay all of their financial obligations. So once that's done, it's the amount of cash a company has after paying their debts. Money. That's a good thing. And it looks good here on AMD, both on a quarterly and if we switch over here to annual, And you can see this company came off some negative numbers in the past, where this stock would have been one to be a bit more cautious about, as I mentioned with the operating income. But the next big piece here is the earnings call. That's going to, again, be somewhere around July 30th. So comment below if you're interested in me coming back to give you an update on my AMD portfolio, as well as my thoughts around the future of this particular company. Now, if you're into semiconductors, there's an ETF that focuses specifically on semiconductors, and that is SMH. No, it doesn't stand for shaking my head. It stands for semiconductors. And you can check out more on that video by checking out this video next, and we'll see you on the next video.